To have a worry-free holiday with Javel. Call 639-8226 or 631-1336 or message us on
the secrecy surrounding how viable is it to construct a swimming pool beside the beach? And therefore, the rationale behind this project is quite critical. Who are the developers behind this initiative? Were there any meaningful consultation with the stakeholders? Where are the current tenants being relocated? And who will compensate them for the likely loss of earnings to this forced relocation? Is this project truly a priority, especially in light of the current crime situation? Should businesses be disrupted in a way that threatens their ability to generate income and keep staff employed? And why are we risking putting people on the breadline during such a critical and challenging time? What will this project cost the THA and the people of Tobago? And why do we continue to neglect development in the east of the island, further exacerbating the spatial inequalities of development on the island? This particular approach is not conducive to the sustainable development of Tobago and its economy. I am certain that there are many other relevant questions that could be raised about this seemingly secretive development. And that is why the idea is calling on you, the media, to engage in investigative journalism to uncover the truth behind this project in the best interest of Tobago and its people. Good governance demands transparency in the operation of any administration and accountability from its leaders to the population. When activities and projects are shrouded in secrecy, it only fuels speculation about the potential wrongdoing, which is detrimental to the well-being or to any well-intentioned project and to our democracy. So, to the media, we eagerly await the findings of your investigation into this very secretive Storby Beach development. I now turn to Ms. Stacey Herbert, who will address the concerns arising out of the commissioning of the new Shervan Road roundabout. Ms. Herbert, the podium is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to say good afternoon to the viewing public and all the media represented here today. Thank you for being here as we address an urgent issue that has deeply impacted the residents of Shervan Park, which partially consists of the residents from Bino Avenue and proceeding east along Claude Noel Highway towards Canoe Bay entrance and further along to the First Citizens Bank. The newly commissioned roundabout in Shervan, part of a broader Shervan-Tobago local road project, has unfortunately brought with it significant challenges that our community cannot ignore. While this project has been hailed by the Tobago House of Assembly as a major step in infrastructure development, the reality for over 100 residents is quite different. The new traffic patterns, specifically the restrictions of right turns after leaving the roundabout and proceeding in an easterly direction, have forced us into a situation where the only way to head west is to first travel east, turn at Hamden Lowlands, which is some 2.3 kilometers away, and then backtrack in order to head west. This is not just an inconvenience, it is a burden. These traffic changes have led to a rise in fuel consumption, adding unnecessary costs to our daily commutes. Residents now spend more on gas just to carry out routine tasks like grocery shopping, or even as school is going to reopen, dropping off their children to school. The situation is even worse for those who rely on taxis. Taxi drivers dropping passengers inside Canoe Bay can no longer access the Claude Noel Highway from Canoe Bay on their return, since the exit from Canoe Bay Junction is no longer permitted. This places a passenger who wants to stop off between Canoe Bay entrance and Bino Avenue in quite some difficulty. On top of these issues, the bus stops are located about 600 meters apart, with no bus sheds in this residential area, which is far beyond the guidelines set by PTSC. This makes public transportation virtually inaccessible, particularly for the elderly and those with mobility challenges. What was once a simple trip has now become a physically and financially exhausting ordeal. The residents of Shervan Park, between Bino Avenue and Canoe Bay, are not against progress. But we cannot support a development that disregards the needs of our community as it is supposed to serve us. We urgently recommend that there be some re-evaluation of the newly installed traffic patterns, which takes into consideration the residents and the businesses in and along Shervan Park area and significantly alleviates the current stress and economic burden that the residents are now experiencing. Moreover, we are calling on the THA under the leadership of Farley Augustine to engage in meaningful consultation with the affected communities. It is time for our representatives to step up and for our voices to be heard. Development should not come at the cost of our well-being, and the current situation is simply unacceptable. The people of Tobago deserve better. The people of Shervan Park deserve better. We deserve development that is inclusive, thoughtful, and responsive to our needs. It is time for action, and it is time for a solution that works for everyone. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I will now invite our political leader, Dr. Denise Sorifat Angus, to come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stacey Herbert, and also Ms. Kay Trotman, who went before her. Ladies and gentlemen of the media and those of the viewing audience, I thank you for being here today. The people of Tobago are feeling trapped, almost as if they're living in a jail. I've spoken to folks in Argyle recently, and their response is, oh gosh, the place too hot. We're not coming out of the house. Others are saying, our children not going anywhere. They have to stay right here in the house and play. The question must be asked though, how do we create a space where everyone can experience freedom again? Freedom to enjoy this paradise we call home. Let me be clear. It wouldn't happen by developing databases to track down criminals staying at guest houses or those who may be renting cars. The IDA has continually said, without data and expertise to analyze it, the road to hell will be paved with good intentions. Whilst this step on gathering databases may sound appealing, it infringes on people's rights to privacy and could very well harm Tobago's tourism industry more than it helps. If the administration truly had their ears to the ground, they know that an owner who hasn't had a tenant in 9 months and suddenly gets a year's rent up front is faced with a hard choice. Do they call the police or go to the bank and say, I can finally pay my arrears, don't take my house? Similarly with getting a database from renting cars. Would that work? As we are sure that will have more administrative cost implications for businesses to implement, and yet we are seeing more reports of car thefts and even the opportunity for cars to come up on the boats. But we get it, something needs to be done, and this initiative might look good on paper, but let's be honest, it's in the same category as the infamous shark bounty, ineffective. Yesterday, we saw Minister Scotland and the police commissioner walking through Crown Point. And people are asking, what was the objective? Really? Walking in the middle of the road, what, why? They didn't see ACP Hazel with them either. And of course, tongues are wagging. They're even asking, why they're not in Roxborough, where the real crime was happening recently? They're frightened to go up there or what? It doesn't seem like the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. What exactly was the goal here? These are all the questions and comments in the public domain. One would have expected that after the Prime Minister's National Security meeting in Tobago, Chief Secretary Farley would have endorsed a budget specifically allocated for fighting crime in Tobago. Minister Scotland should have been sent to Tobago to meet with the Chief Secretary and assure him that the budget is on the way. Instead, what do we see? The minister walking in the middle of the road with the commissioner, and that the Chief Secretary is using Tobago's meager resources to fund the TTPS and to rent pirogues for the Coast Guard. That's another story in itself. This budget should be about equipping the TTPS, the Coast Guard, and increasing the number of social workers, psychologists, and putting a research unit together to work with the TTPS. That is really the bulk of where we want to see the crime-fighting initiatives happening. The IDA has consistently advocated for meaningful conversations between the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister on behalf of the people of Tobago. Fighting crime at this level requires extreme collaboration between the two and resources that are not limited to boots on the ground, but equipping them to adequately do their jobs. We need additional resources specific to crime prevention programs in families. We need the Constitution reformed to empower communities. And if the Prime Minister and his cabinet are not willing to make the appropriate decisions and allocate the additional resources specifically for this in Tobago, then what are they leaving Tobagonians to think? A walkabout in Crown Point with the minister? Is that just another political exercise? Selfish and short-sighted is the IDA's response to the Chief Secretary saying, we don't want Trinidad criminals in Tobago. Leave and go back. The country is Trinidad and Tobago. We are half of this nation. We can't just say, go back where you come from. That's a simplistic view that shows a lack of understanding and leadership. At least 30% of Trinidad has Tobago roots, if not more. We are all one. When a man from Trinidad call and tell Granny in Tobago, Granny, I'm coming to look for you. You really think Granny's studying crime? Or that she's excited to see her grandson, especially if he's walking with couple gifts? The approach must be collaborative to fix crime across the entire country and not just in Tobago. Attempting to fix crime in Tobago alone in isolation is like putting a Band-Aid on a wound that needs complex surgery, or worse yet, pouring water in a strainer. In our last press conference, the IDA advocated for a specific unit to get to the root causes of the crime situation. Without the data, we would not find sustainable solutions. Last Thursday, during the weekly Tobago Legislative Series online program, Crime and Solutions were the topic, where Dr. Wendell C. Wallace was the guest speaker. Now, Dr. Wallace is a criminologist and lecturer at UE. He's an attorney at law, a researcher, and an author recognized for his work internationally. And he's from Castara, so he's a homeboy. This is someone who the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister should have on their teams, giving him the resources to go into communities and to conduct the clinical diagnosis we desperately need, using his experience, his vast experience, both locally and across the region, to bring solutions to the table. We need an all-deck on hands approach. Dr. Wallace's research pointed out that 4 years ago, during a Tobago Channel 5 interview, he predicted where Tobago would be today. Unfortunately, he was right. He saw the trends and sounded the alarm, but it fell on deaf ears. Last Thursday, he laid out the science behind the approach we should be taking. It involves looking at crime prevention, intervention, and suppression on 3 levels: the family, the communities, and the governance. And in that order, it is critical, because I say it all the time, criminals are not born, they are made by their circumstances. So we have to look at the family, the communities, and the governance. He further stated that each of these areas must be operating at 75% of capacity to positively transform our environment. Right now, we're at 25% in each of these areas, and this is why crime is flourishing. when we examine the family structure, many of them are broken. The increase in single-parent homes is alarming. With the rise in murders, there are now 19 additional homes and countless communities across Tobago and even in Trinidad that have been shattered. Remember, our roots run deep and everybody's on a pumpkin vine. The IDA has heard stories, case in point, where a young boy's father and uncle murdered, grandfather unknown. Where does he get his mentorship from? He has been adopted by the elders on the block, elders who are not much older than he is, because his mother, now the sole breadwinner, is working extended hours and still can't provide adequately. Oftentimes, she comes home late into the night when they're sleeping and leaves early in the morning because she's working 2 jobs. They are there to see about themselves. There are other similar stories, and these stories are real stories. How is the THA addressing this? If they don't know about these stories, how can they address it? A URP job is not enough. Mental health support is definitely a must to heal from this trauma. Where is the mediation unit for young couples to hold them together in their union? Where are the psychologists to counsel perpetrators and victims of domestic violence so that homes can heal from generational practices and the families can survive? And where the children can now have a new experience to build on? Where is the social work support for single mothers living in abject poverty right here in Tobago? It would bring tears to your eyes to see what is happening with no extended family to lean on, because many have left their communities to find work and affordable shelter elsewhere. When a young boy sees his mother struggling to such an extent and he's offered a job on the block, do you expect him to say no? He doesn't see himself as a criminal, but as a survivor and a savior for his family and his mother, who he loves deeply. 10 days on, 10 days off is definitely not the answer here. We have also heard of situations where the child becomes the aggressor in the home to the mother, who can no longer control her son Lyman on the block. There's no man in the home. Who can she turn to save this child in time? This is where true community policing comes about, not a walkabout. Can she call on the police to come in, discipline the child, and have ongoing conversations with him? Where are the pastors, the other community leaders in the lives of these families? After prayer comes works. What role does the bank play if this young man turns his life around and wants to start a legal business? Or even the mother sees an opportunity to do that. Will they be frustrated by the restrictive banking policies like so many here are facing, just trying to open an account or get a business started, or even expanded? What conversation is the Tobago House of Assembly having with banking institutions to facilitate the growth of young entrepreneurs? We cannot just throw money at potential entrepreneurs without addressing the other key causes for failure to thrive in their businesses. There are persons who are working on what we consider to be good jobs, but are tempted to a life of crime because they still cannot see their way with the job As we saw in the recent charge of a Tobago House of Assembly employee from the Office of the Chief Secretary. And let me digress a little bit here, because it is absolutely disgraceful and shows poor leadership skills that every time the Chief Secretary feels some hot water, he attempts to throw someone, a public servant, somebody else under the bus. Whether the young man was working at the Chief Secretary residence, the office, another division, whether he was hired yesterday or in 2018 matters not. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. In fact, the young man could have been an upstanding citizen and, good employee until the recent downturn in the last 3 years of the economy, where it now has forced him to consider an additional ill-advised income. Regardless, what we would have expected to hear from a Chief Secretary is that crime will not be tolerated in or outside of the Tobago House of Assembly, and that in collaboration with the Human Resource departments, the TTPS, and the Tobago House of Assembly legal unit, a decision will be made on how the situation will be handled, and zip your mouth. Talking about how many hours the man has lost from work on Facebook and all of the manner of who is related to or not related to, that is not your business as a Chief Secretary. Let the police service do their work, and you manage and take responsibility for the Tobago House of Assembly, of which you're in charge of every part of it as a whole. And so the point is, crime is everyone's business. Criminals must be highly organized to get to this point of running rings around the country. And it's clear that when the government understands the root causes of crime currently and can organize itself better than the criminals, we'll have a fighting chance. Again, a walkabout is not the answer, and the blame game is not working. The communities must be strengthened to provide relevant prevention initiatives, engaging youth in sports, academics, trade, and mentoring programs, offering scholarships to promising students, intervening earlier with at-risk youths. Communities can provide jobs closer to home when they are empowered. But this won't happen without constitutional changes that facilitate empowerment of communities so they can have their own resources, have a structure at the community level to manage those resources, and have their rights protected in the Constitution. If we don't address this problem, it will only worsen with political interference from every successive administration, manipulating the communities at will with dangling carrots. The police are spinning top in mud if the judiciary doesn't appear to support their efforts with appropriate sentences and bail decisions. Again, criminals are organized. All arms of the government, private sector, NGOs, FBOs must collaborate in this effort. Non-governmental organizations, faith-based organizations, government, private sector, all must collaborate in this effort, knowing where and how they all fit in. It's up to all of us to shape our future. We can decide imagine what that future is to be for a progressive and prosperous island. We then decide on the pathway which will get us there as individuals and as a collective. And then action, action, action is what will get us there. In conclusion, the idea is advocating for a comprehensive and multi-level approach to crime prevention and socio-economic development in Tobago and the country. The key is, again, collaboration between the Tobago House of Assembly and the government, communities, families, and the private sector, which includes our non-governmental organization and faith-based organization. All hands on deck. Together, we can ensure that every level of society functions positively, reducing crime and building a better future for all in Tobago, and by extension, the nation. I urge the Tobago House of Assembly and the government to work together and provide the leadership to bring everyone with the expertise to come on board to provide the workable solutions at this time. And so I pause for any questions on this area. Okay, no questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to shift the focus now to the wins and the woes in the health sector. First, let me commend our healthcare professionals for their swift and decisive action in saving the life of a young doctor, their colleague, who was struck by a stray bullet in Roxborough. The IDA and I personally are immensely relieved that her life was spared. The entire community, along with her husband and 2 children, can breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that the worst was avoided. This is a testament to the dedication and skill of our medical professionals right here in Tobago. However, we must acknowledge that not all families have been so fortunate. There have been too many instances where the system has failed our people, leading to tragic loss of life. Families are reporting a deep sense of abandonment by the very system that should have protected their loved ones. While I won't go into details, out of respect for those affected, I must mention at least 2 recent cases that have weighed heavily on the community. The heartbreaking death of a mother following a miscarriage, and the tragic loss of a child under the age of 10. These families have expressed a profound sense of being let down by the system. And it brings us to a critical issue, the need for accountability in our healthcare system. But let me be clear, this is not about punishing those involved. Instead, it is about creating a culture where we can learn from these tragic events, improve our standards of care, and prevent such outcomes in the future. We need policies in place that ensure every death in our hospital is thoroughly examined, not to assign blame, but to identify what went wrong and how better can be done. Internationally, many countries have adopted systems where healthcare providers analyze adverse events to learn and improve. For example, in countries like the United Kingdom, Australia, and the United States, where I was trained and practiced for a bit, healthcare institutions routinely conduct what's known as morbidity and mortality meetings, where cases with poor outcomes are reviewed in a non-punitive environment. The focus is on understanding the factors that contributed to the outcomes and implementing changes to prevent similar events in the future. These reviews are often multidisciplinary teams to ensure a comprehensive understanding of what happened and how it can be improved. In addition, international best practices emphasize the importance of transparency and communication with the families affected. In places like Canada, healthcare systems have implemented policies where families are informed about the findings of these reviews and the steps being taken to improve care. In 2007, the then board of the TRHA implemented such measures when they were faced with the families dealing with the 5 neonatal deaths. This approach not only fosters trust between healthcare providers and the community, but also helps in healing and closure for those who have lost loved ones. Doctors and nurses do not make a hospital. A hospital is made up of the combination of numerous persons of various disciplines, equipment, policies, procedures, and standards of care to make it a whole. As such, ensuring that our hospitals are equipped with the necessary tools and support services is crucial. This includes up-to-date medical equipment, well-trained ancillary staff, and efficient support services. In many leading healthcare systems, there is a continuous process of auditing equipment and staff competencies to ensure that they meet the highest standards of care. Implementing these practices here in Tobago would not only elevate the quality of care we provide, but would also lay the foundation for developing a robust medical tourism product. Imagine a healthcare system that not only serves the local community with excellence, but also attracts patients from around the world seeking top-notch medical care in a beautiful, tranquil environment. In fact, many persons from across the diaspora would love to come home, but their greatest concern is, if I come home, what is the standard of care that I will receive in my age bracket coming into Tobago? And so, this is possible for us if we commit to learning from every case, continuously improving standards and being transparent and accountable to the people we serve. I urge the Secretary of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection to take these steps seriously. Implementing these processes will help restore trust in our healthcare system and ensure that no family ever feels abandoned again. And so as I close, I would like to ask if you have any questions on this section. So as we close this press conference, I would like to commend the Tobago Mobilize Tobago church activity where a number of churches are coming together again in a session of prayer beginning on Friday from 5 p.m. to Sunday morning 6:30 a.m. at the Lowlands Community Center. Please, prayer is absolutely important. Get involved some way or the other, okay? We are all related here, and crime is the business for all. I also want to, and so I encourage all of you to attend, and that is Friday the 16th of August that will take place beginning. I also want to add that on the 18th, the 17th, Saturday the 17th, the Plymouth SDA Church is having a walk in awareness of crime and prayer. So please go out and support them. Additionally, the community leaders and Dr. Vanis James, they are having a constitutional conversation on the 28th of August at the Scarborough Library. That's Wednesday from 4:30 p.m. Again, come out, communities, people, come out and have that discussion about where we are going in Tobago and how does the crime impact how we are living, and therefore what can the Constitution, part can the Constitution reform play in curbing crime. So with that, I want to say thanks again for joining us for another press conference with the Innovative Democratic Alliance. Thank you for being here.